Galgun Returns is right around the corner, and it's looking more and more like a straight remake of the original. So, in hopes that most of this information will translate over to the new version, I thought I'd finish this guide for the original. This is a general guide, including navigating the menus, the different game modes, and a guide to the events and bosses throughout the game. Timestamps for everything will be at the top of the description. While all this information in this video is based off of the PS3 version of the game, most of it should still be applicable to the Xbox 360 version. Although I've never played that version, so I don't really know everything that's different. The PS3 version is seen as the definitive version of the original game, so I would recommend that one anyways. Now, with all that out of the way, we'll start with the most important thing, navigating the menus. Since the entire game is in Japanese, I'll be going through each option on the main menu. As soon as you press start on the main menu, you end up here, on story mode. This is obviously for the main story contents of the game. Going down one, you end up on score attack mode. This is where you'll find the level select, boss, minigame replays, and storyless route replays. We'll come back here later. The next step down is the Doki-Doki Carnival. This is an unlockable game mode, acting as an epilogue to the main story events. This mode is unlocked after obtaining the true ending in all 4 story mode routes. Again, we'll come back here later. Underneath is the underwater mode. As you can see here, it is still locked on my save. This is because the unlock requirement for the mode is ridiculously time consuming. You must collect the swimsuit journal entry for every girl in the game. And underwater mode is basically just the slow mode version of the regular gameplay anyway. Next is score mode. The name is a little misleading, as this is just where all your high scores are saved. The top option is for your personal score, while the bottom option is for the global scores. Obviously, this online functionality no longer works. After that is the collection. Here is where you can check out the journal and your collection of titles. The journal has all the information you have collected for each girl across your save. These are basically bios with information on every girl that is slowly filled out as you play. Titles are basically just that, titles. They are awarded for hitting various different score thresholds with different stats. If you'd like more information on either of these, you can follow the link in the description to the trophy guide. This is followed by the changing room. Here's where you can customize the outfits for the various girls. While this game did have DLC costumes, these are no longer available. However, several costumes are still unlockable in the base game. Following that is the gallery. Here you can use the game's currency to unlock images, or view any image obtained in the story modes. The game's currency, these golden feathers, are obtained by playing through the story and score attack modes. And the final option is, well, the options mode. Here's where you can change the various game settings. I'll go over all the options now, as this is probably one of the first places you'll want to go. The top option is for reticle inversion, going up when you point the stick down and vice versa. The first option keeps everything normal, and the second option is to invert. The second option is the reticle sensitivity, how fast the aiming reticle moves across the screen. The higher the number, the faster it moves. Honestly, none of them are really better than the others. It's up to you to feel them out and pick whichever one you like best. The third option is for the controller rumble. The fourth option is for text box displays. You're better off setting it to the second option and never touching this option again. The fifth option is for character display speed. Again, unless you can read Japanese, just set it to the fourth option, which is instant speed. The sixth option is for message skip toggling. Setting it to the first option only allows for skipping text that has previously been seen. The second option allows for skipping any text. So once again, unless you can read the text, or maybe just like listening to the voice dialogue, you should set this to the second option. The final option is for skipping the tutorial. The first option makes it play only the first time you start a new game. The second will play it every time. It's up to you really whether or not you want to do the tutorial every time, but I would set it to the first option. Now for the 2 items on the bottom. The second to last option is for restoring defaults, and the final option is for saving changes, or you could just hit circle to back out to the main options menu. When you back out, it'll save any changes made automatically. This second page is for button remapping. Simply hover over whatever you want to remap and hit whatever you want the new button to be. The third option is for adjusting brightness. The fourth option is for sound adjustment. Here is also where you can turn menu voices on and off. So if you have a favorite character, you can set them to be the only menu narrator. And finally, the last option is for calibrating PlayStation Move controllers. I do not own any PlayStation Move controllers, so I can't really guide you through this one, but it shouldn't be too hard to figure out. The basic controls are pretty simple. Feeling them out during the tutorial is pretty quick and easy. The most important thing to remember is, unlike other games in the franchise, there is no real penalty for spamming shots. The visual novel-dating sim sections are also pretty straightforward. X progresses through text boxes, L1 to slow them down, R1 to skip dialogue, and circle to pause dialogue. With dating sims in mind, occasionally a set of choices will appear, where you are given the choice between three options, one on square, triangle, and circle. These are contextual about 90% of the time, so I recommend using a visual guide that I'll have linked at the top of the description if you'd like the answers to any of the questions on any of these 4 routes. Now that that's done, let's get to the actual game. At the beginning of every story mode run, you're given a quiz. This quiz will determine your stats. If you're just trying to play through the game normally, I recommend answering square to every question, as this will give you the best possible stats. The stats don't do much for normal gameplay, but they do determine the answers generated during the question scenes. They also determine the title received upon ranking up your score. After determining your stats, you're brought to a screen with the 4 main heroines on it. Here's where you pick your route. Luckily, they are in order based on difficulty. Although the cursor starts on the second girl, Kaname, if you go left 1 space, you end up on Aoi, the easiest route to play through. The next hardest would be back on Kaname, to the right we have Akira, and in the back, the most difficult route, we have Karuko. Each route will feature the same formula for their structures, a few shared levels at the beginning, their route-specific assortment of levels, with 2 minigames/bosses mixed in, all culminating in a big fight with the main girl at the end. Next I'll be running through each minigame, so if you'd like to puzzle them out yourself, this is where I recommend you turn off the video, now that all the basic setup is done. Aoi's first minigame is arguably the easiest one in the entire game, which makes sense as this is likely the first one players are going to encounter. Aoi is trying to write a song and it's up to you to help out with the lyrics. Luckily, the answers are always the same. Sadly, they are mostly in Japanese, and they bounce around the screen, and where they spawn is random. I recommend pulling up the visual guide for this one, as it will help you make some sense of the options in front of you. If you need some time to stop and read the guide or the answers, you can always just pause the game over and over. There is no penalty for this, and it really helps as you get further through the minigame and you have to select multiple options within a short time limit. Aoi's next minigame is set during a concert that she's putting on in the gym. A bunch of arrows will fly up the screen. It's your job to shoot all of the blue arrows that are labeled boo, and make them into the red arrows labeled yeah. Don't worry if you let some through, this game gives you plenty of leniency. The objective is to fill up the bar at the top with as many cheers as you can before the show ends after about 2 minutes. We'll come back to Aoi's fight later on. I'll be explaining all the fights all together at the end of this section. Kaname's first game is helping her in the library, and this is the game that benefits most from the PlayStation Move. The objective is to shoot the highlighted books, while also balancing the ladder that she's standing on by putting your reticle within the boundary on it. If you fail to balance the ladder, books will fall from the shelf towards you, and you'll need to blast them away to avoid taking damage. This minigame isn't horrible, but the requirement for it is crazy high. Most of the time, you'll probably only end up filling around 2/3 of the bar. Kaname's next game is actually a mini-boss. Here Kaname is being held by a plant monster, for some reason. The objective is to shoot the highlighted weak points, where she's being held, and then shoot the monster mouth once it's open. However, if you end up shooting Kaname, she'll shout at you, and that shout is an attack that you'll also need to shoot before it hits you, or you'll take damage. Next is Akira and her first minigame. This one is hands down the most annoying one, in my opinion. Akira is on the opposite end of the school's pool from you. From here, she's smacking metal balls, skipping them across the water at you. The objective is pretty simple. Shoot the balls and don't get hit in the face. Occasionally, she'll smack a few at once, and a freeze frame will happen with all of them flying towards you at once. Here, you must quickly shoot them all down before the slowdown ends. Once you shoot enough of the metal balls, the game ends. Akira's other game is another test of patience. On a blustery rooftop, you need to shoot debris out of the air while waiting for Akira to open herself up for an attack. Just find her weak points and mass shoot. Do this 2 or 3 times and the game's over. If you shoot her before she opens up, she'll counterattack, where you must counter her counter. Not much of a minigame or boss really. Finally, Karuko and her first minigame. This one's kind of a doozy. First, she'll ask you to strike a pose. The pose she wants is random, and the buttons with the poses are also random. It's best to pause a lot, like we did back in Oi's first minigame, in order to read the guide that is basically necessary for this minigame. After striking the pose, you'll begin to doze off and start counting sheep. So, we do to them what we do with every other problem we've had in this game. We shoot them. If you shoot their weak points, they go down in one shot. However, you can just rapidly shoot them in order to take them out. If you let too many sheep cross the screen, you'll doze off. The objective is to stay awake for as long as possible. And, also if possible, stay awake for the entire duration of the minigame. There's really no way to speed this up. It's basically sitting there for 3 minutes, shooting sheep. Her second event is much like Kaname's plant fight. The objective is to shoot the weak points on the cage in order to break off all 4 of the walls, while also dodging damage from the helicopter. Be mindful not to shoot Karuko. Whenever you do, she will shout at you and that shout will become an attack. Finally, let's address the final fights. They all work basically the same. The girl will run around, flinging projectiles at you, which you must shoot down to avoid damage. After doing this for a few seconds, they will begin charging a big attack. This can be a jumping attack towards you or a large wave of projectiles. In both cases, just shoot anything or anyone that comes near you until the big attack ends. Once it does, the girl will be knocked down, and a bunch of weak points will appear on them. You have to shoot all of these quickly, and if you do, you deal big damage. The cycle then starts over. After the big boss fights to wrap up each story, as long as you have enough affection, based around minigame performance and how well you answer the questions each chapter, you get to perform the final Doki-Doki. This is mechanically the same as any other Doki-Doki event in the game, so I'll explain it all here together. During regular gameplay, the heart-shaped meter by the health bar will fill. Once this fills up, at least once, you can activate a Doki-Doki. This bar can fill up to 3 times in order to extend the timer in this mode. When the reticle is hovering over any girl, if you press triangle, you will enter Doki-Doki with whoever you are aiming at. This is a mode where you get up close and personal. You aim at specific body parts and shoot them to fill up a meter on the left side of the screen. By moving around, you can find weak points by the text that pops up. The larger the text, the more meter you get for shooting it. You can also fill the meter faster by charging shots. Doki-Doki mode is how you fill the journal entries for the girls in the collections. A side note, successful Doki-Dokis will change your stats on a girl-to-girl basis, and you will also heal a small amount of health. If you'd like more information on any of this, please refer to the trophy guide. Lastly, I'll touch upon the score attack mode. Here you can replay routes without any story events, or select individual levels to replay. Everything is sorted by whichever route the level is found in. On top of replaying levels, you can also replay minigames, mini-bosses, and the big 4 boss fights. Lastly, there is an option to play every level in a row. By selecting all routes, you'll play the 4 routes in order with no breaks. This lasts a little over an hour and is worth bringing up because this is done on hard mode. You take more damage and deal less. Since I forgot to include this earlier, I'll tack it on here at the end. After each chapter, you'll see this screen. The square prompt will take you back to the main menu. The triangle prompt will restart the chapter in its entirety. The circle prompt will save and continue to the next chapter. And that is my general guide to the original Galgun. If I missed anything, or if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments.